بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم إننا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعوة لا يستجاب لها يا معلم إبراهيم علمنا ويا مفهم سليمان فهمنا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته حياكم الله وبياكم أحبتي في الله to another class, another gathering in studying the poem Manhaj-Tullab by our beloved Shaykh Muhammad Ali Adam, Ethiopia, rahimahullah ta'ala. And we are winding down in the explanation of this poem, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, with this being the second to last class in reading and reviewing what the Shaykh has written and composed in this wonderful lines of poetry. So we continue with what the Shaykh said in line number 231, and we'll complete this page as well as the page following it in this class. So he says here, rahimahullah, in وقعت مسألة غريبة نبهتهم بأنها عجيبة. That if there arises an unfamiliar or peculiar issue, something that is unknown, then you would alert the students that it's something that's unusual. It's not something that is common. Rather, it is an unfamiliar issue. So you highlight that to the students. وينبغي التحريض في المذاكرة في دائم الأوقات والمناظرة. And it is imperative for the teacher to strongly encourage. Tahrid is not simply hath, encouragement, but it is hathum biquwwa, yani that you strongly encourage your students to revise fil mudhakirah, not simply with themselves at home by themselves, but with their classmates, with their family members, with other people. Review often with others, because a person, when they revise and they study on their own, they may not have or put 100% effort into the revision. They may be lackadaisical. They may think they have it down pat, what they've memorized, but in reality, it's very weak. But when you memorize with someone else or you review with someone else, then you're able to put more effort and more energy and more focus and concentration in what you are memorizing and reviewing. So that's why it's very important, ikhwan akhawat, that you study, you review specifically on your own. You have your own time when you review, but you also review with your classmates, with your friends, with your families. طيب, this will help you in cementing that information, cementing that knowledge, making it firm in your memory. في دائم الأوقات والمناظرة. يعني you do this, you encourage them to review at all times. طيب, and also as it relates to having discussion, having a conversation regarding what you have studied, not just simply reciting from memory, but reviewing in terms of understanding what you have recited, understanding what you have memorized. Have a discussion. What did the Shaykh say about this point? What did the Shaykh say about that point? Right? You have a discussion. You have a debate, quote unquote. طيب. طالبهم في بعض الأوقات بأن يراجع المحفوظ حتى يطمئن. And that the teacher should also, from time to time, request them to review what they've memorized. Yani to mention, yani what have you memorized in yesterday's class? Shaykh Muhammad Ali Adam, Ethiopia, rahimahullah, early on, he would have his students, as mentioned by his students, those older students of his. He said they would say that the Shaykh would request the students to memorize short biographies of the narrators, and he will have them recited. Even lines of Alfiya ibn Malik before he begins the lesson, he will have them recited before starting the class. Now, so this is a very beneficial method, especially when you have live classes, on-site classes, to have the students regurgitate and recite from their memory what they have memorized from the previous class. And this keeps everyone on their toes as well, and it encourages them to be more active in their attendance. Now, so the Shaykh, he said here, from time to time, request them to review what they have memorized. طالبهم, في بعض الأوقات بأن يراجع المحفوظ حتى يطمئن. Until rest assured that it is firmly in their memory. Okay, until you become assured that it is firmly in their memory, has been preserved. ناقشهم بما مضى من الذي أفدتهم في الدرس من بحث شذي. And also discuss with them what you have benefited them with in the previous lessons. And also give them research topics, distinct and specific research topics to search for. For example, you're explaining a book, you're explaining a point, and there comes an interesting topic. You specify a student to research this topic. And next class, provide your research. This helps the student in developing their research skills. Now, من كان منهم حافظا أكرمته أثني عليه معليا همته. That whoever among them has memorized that which you have honored them with of beneficial knowledge, because knowledge is an honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if this student has committed to the memory, sacrificed their time, their free time after the class, not just simply forgetting about what he has learned, but they have sacrificed their time in memorizing the lesson and they have recited it to you, then commend them, praise them, أثني عليه معليا همته, for the purpose of lifting their drive, lifting their aspiration, lifting their desire in seeking knowledge, encouraging them to continue upon this path. As if a person is consistent and they're granted success from Allah, then they'll reach high stations بإذن ta'ala. نعم. إن لم تخف إعجابه ومن غدا مقصرا عن نفته لا يرشدا or لا يرشدا. There's two pronunciations as a sheikh here he put. The meaning is, if you are not afraid, that you praise them so long as you are not afraid of them becoming self-amazed. There are certain people, they become self-amazed with their few tiny actions. Those individuals, if you know that they are like that, you avoid praising them so that it prevents them from falling into this pitfall. As for those you know who are diligent in trying to rectify themselves and they're not fooled by the praises of mankind, then these are the type of people you should try to praise outwardly, and do not make it a constant thing, but once in a while. Do not constantly praise an individual generally, because we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he ordered even throwing sand in a person's eyes, subhanAllah, if they were to praise an individual too much. Now, so this is something that a person should be aware of and avoid. However, if you are not afraid that that praise would adversely affect them, then you should do it. As for وَمَنْ غَدَى مُقَصِّرًا عَنْ نَفْتَهُ لَيَرْشُدًا, then this is in regards to the person who was once diligent and then became negligent. Okay, then the teacher should be an advisor to that person, perhaps even be critical of them, remind them in a serious tone of the importance of this knowledge, of what you have obtained, what you spent your time in sacrificed in obtaining, bifadlillah. And they should advise them, even if it requires a harsh manner or a more critical manner, a more serious tone. You remind them so that they can be guided again, so that they can come back to the path. Now, there are many people who early on, they memorized the Quran, they memorized Hadith, they were engaged in attending lessons, etc. But then they are afflicted with the trials of the dunya, may Allah protect us all. And they begin to become muqassirin, among the muqassirin, those who are negligent, those who leave off that which they used to do of good. And as a result, they leave off seeking knowledge and they perhaps forget. These people, they need to be reminded. Teachers should remind them of the virtue of knowledge and encourage them to continue upon the path and to return back to the path, and that it's not over. Just because you've taken, quote unquote, a break, it doesn't mean that your path of seeking knowledge is completely over. Rather return back to the path and continue in where you left off, revise what you have forgotten, and inshallah ta'ala, if you have sincerity, Allah will accept it from you and grant you success to the rest of your life. نعم. وإن يكن بعضهم قد سبق عليك في الفهم فأثني مطلقا. That if some of the students, you find that some of the students have preceded you in having understanding of an issue, then commend them in an unrestricted manner, meaning no matter if they are older than you or the same age as you or younger than you, no matter if they're from your country, from your tribe, from your town, or from a different country, a different tribe, a different town, or if they're a different color than you. There's certain people that they only seek knowledge from the people of their own land, right? If they only seek knowledge from those who are Somali, for example, or those who are only Egyptian, or those who are only Bengali or Indian, or right? There's people like that out there, or those who are only black. Now I'm African American, quote unquote, or Native American, whatever you want to call them. This is a mistake. You should seek knowledge from anyone who has knowledge. Do not restrict yourself to a particular people. Now, and if you find that someone from a different race, a different country, a different tribe, different who speaks a different native tongue than you, has preceded you in a particular aspect of the deen, then you praise them for it. Now, that's not a form of humiliation for you to acknowledge that this person is more knowledgeable you in this issue, because the knowledge that we get is from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and Allah gives to whoever He wills, and none of us we own knowledge. طيب? Rather, it's a gift from Allah, and Allah gives it to whoever He wills. Now, so if you find that someone has preceded you in a particular issue, then you praise them for it. Now, and it doesn't decrease the teacher's knowledge or his status at all, right? Even Musa, the great prophet, Musa from the Ulul Azm, the 5 best prophets and messengers, he was sent to Khadr. He was sent to Khadr. Despite him being from the Ulul Azm, he was sent to Khadr to obtain knowledge. But that does not diminish the status of Musa alayhi salam. And you find that some scholars, rather many scholars, they became experts in a particular field, and they had contemporaries who were experts in a different field which they weren't as proficient in. So they would refer to those people in those issues. Now, Ibn Qudama, for example, was a master of fiqh, and Al-Hafiz Abdul Ghani was a master, Yani Maqdisi, he was a master of hadith, and they were family members. They were cousins to one another, and they would seek knowledge together. And whenever Ibn Qudama, rahimahullah, was unsure of a hadith issue, he would refer back to his companion, his cousin, Al-Hafiz Abdul Ghani, right? Whenever he needed help in an issue of hadith. And likewise, Al-Hafiz Abdul Ghani, whenever he was confused regarding a fiqh issue, he would refer back to his cousin, his companion, Ibn Qudama. وهكذا. And that did not diminish any of their status. This is a habit, this is an etiquette that we should try to practice, ikhwani and khawat, in benefiting not simply from your teachers, but also from your classmates. Remember one time, one of our mashaykh, whenever he gave a class, you find that sometimes the students after class, they would ask the sheikh, what did you say? What did you say? Can you repeat what you said? And the sheikh corrected the student, and he said, ask your classmates. This is the etiquette, that you don't, if you miss something in the lesson, you miss something from the lecture, then you benefit from your classmates and see what they have written, what they have jotted down. And this is another etiquette, ikhwan and akhawat, that when you attend classes, you don't just enter the masjid, attend the classes, and leave. You should try to get to know the people who attend the lessons as well, have a connection with the students, with your classmates. Have some type of connection with them, and not just simply be strangers. You'd be surprised, subhanAllah, people could be studying for years under a sheikh, under a scholar, and the students don't know one another. Allah musta'an. They don't know anything about the other. Allah musta'an. And this is not correct. Rather, there should be brotherhood and sisterhood between the students. There should be a care and love, especially if they're studying the correct the correct method, the correct understanding of the deen. No. So if the sheikh finds that one of his students have surpassed him in understanding a particular issue, then he praises him for it. Walau saghiran, even if they are a young individual, a young student, a young student of knowledge attending the classes, the sheikh should praise that young individual. إذ بذا يزداد في همته يسمو إلى ذكر الوفي. Since that praise, that praise from the sheikh to the young student will increase that young student in their passion and their eagerness in learning. And as a result, he will continue upon that path and he will earn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. And then when he earns Allah's pleasure, Allah mentions that individual in the highest abode. إلى ذكر الوفي يعني in Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that person في ملأ الأعلى, in the highest abode with those who are with him, and they are the angels. Allah praises that individual among the angels. In the presence of angels. وينبغي تقديم من قد سبق للدرس انزحامهم قد طرق. And those who arrive early among the students, those who arrive early to the lesson, they should be given priority to the sheikh, since they have already faced the crowds. They left their homes early to attend the lecture. So they should be given precedence and priority by the sheikh. And especially when it comes to sitting close to the scholar, that is for those who have come early. And also from the close students of the sheikh, those who have been with the teacher for a long period of time, they are given precedence. And we'll see later on in the Bayt he speaks about this, or he indicates this. Then the sheikh, he says, وَإِنْ يَقَعْ فِي الدَّرْسِ مَا يُسْتَحْيَا فَلْتَكْنِهِ. That if something embarrassing happens during the lesson, then the sheikh should let it pass as if nothing ever happened. So let's say, for example, if a student were to yawn mistakenly, sometimes it happens, you make a sound, right? So it's kind of embarrassing to do in a lecture. Or if a student makes a certain sound that's not befitting, then the sheikh should not point it out and embarrass this individual, but let it pass as if nothing ever happened. Like, for example, another example, like passing wind, akramakumullah. If you were to pass wind in the class, if there's no sound, passing wind in Arabic is called fusa. Fusa. And if there's a sound, then it's referred to as durat. Durat. Let's say a person passes wind in class and it has a sound to it, yani durat, then the teacher should not point it out and embarrass the student, but let it pass as if it never happened. And it's the benefit, yani, when it comes to passing wind, akramakumullah, a person should not intentionally do so in front of others, especially in order to make people laugh. This is a bad habit, bad etiquette you find with some people, Allah mustaan. A person should never do this action without necessity. Why? Because doing so, it negates and it lowers one's shyness. And if you have no shyness, then do whatever you want. Right? If you have no shyness, fasna' ma shit, then do whatever you wish. And it's also deficiency in one's muru'ah, their manhood, their honor with others. In fact, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about the people of Lut, he mentioned in Surah Ankabut, أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ وَتَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلَ وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرِ. He mentioned, he highlights some of the atrocities that they would perform. One of them, of course, billah, they had lust and desire for other men. Billah. The men had desire for other men, and they would do that action that they did. Akramakumullah. And some of them would even abuse the people who would travel on the road, harm them, both physically and sexually. Allah mustaan. Rape them, yani. And some of them, وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرِ, that in their gatherings, they would practice immoral actions, subhanAllah, openly. Shawkani, he mentions in Fath al-Qadir, some of the tafasir of what the Salaf have said, what was meant by al-munkar, what would he do in their gatherings? And he said that they differed over, among the statements mentioned by the Salaf, is that كانوا يتضارطون في مجالسهم, that they would actually fart openly in their gatherings. That this was some of the munkar that they would do. This is some of the munkar that they would do, fart openly and make jokes. And even some of them today, Allah Mustaan, you find that they do it as a joke. Now, this is according to some of the Salaf, some of the munkar that the Qawm Lut would the people of Lut would do. And there's a narration in the Tafsir Ibn Abi Hatim where Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, he was asked about this ayah and what was al-munkar, ماذا كالمنكر? And he said, كانوا يتضارطون في المجلس يضرط بعضهم على بعض. Subhanallah. That they would fart in there, they'll pass wind in their gatherings. And they would even do it on the other. Subhanallah bihamdi. They would do it on the other. Now, so al-muhim, yani, this action, ikhwan akhwat, that has become a norm in certain cultures, certain places, in fact, is considered to be a munkar. It's considered to be a munkar, and from the practices of the people of Lut. So we should try to avoid doing this and making it a joke and making videos about it and sharing it on the internet. And this is not befitting. This is not befitting of a man, of a woman, of Islam. Now, al-muhim, if any of these actions were to occur mistakenly, the sheikh should not point it out and specify the individual. Maybe they can point it out and mention the rulings of it, but don't embarrass the individual and point them out because they have done it mistakenly. طيب. The next point the sheikh mentions, وإن يكن قد أعيا لفهمهم فاذكره بالصريح إذ لا غنى لهم عن التصريح. That if the students are puzzled in understanding a particular issue due to its difficulty, then the sheikh should make it clear, yani, what is the intent, what is the understanding of this issue. And then at that point, they'll have no alternative besides understanding it clearly. Now, that there's something, difficult to understand, the sheikh will, the teacher will clearly explain it, mention it clearly. طيب. And then the sheikh goes on to mention some of the actions that the scholar or teacher should do when they enter the masjid, when they're teaching the deen of Allah, if teaching in the masjid. إذا وصلت موضع الدرس فأد تحية المسجد إذ نصا ورد. Now, that if you were to reach the place of the lecture, and let's say, for example, normally classes are held in the masjid. This is the origin. This is how knowledge was spread. Okay? Yani in the masjid. It was taught primarily in the masjid. So if you were to come to a masjid and teach a class, then perform the tahiyatul masjid, the greeting, quote unquote, of the masjid, the 2 rak'ah. Due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إذا دخل أحدكم المسجد فلا يجلس حتى يصلي ركعتين. That whenever one of you enters the masjid, then let him not sit until he prays 2 units of prayer, collected by both Bukhari and Muslim. طيب. So this is what's referred to as tahiyatul masjid. And you do this action before you give salam to anyone. As mentioned in the hadith of the one who الذي لم يحسن في صلاته, the one who did not pray properly, the one who did not perfect his prayer. The first thing he did when he entered the masjid was to pray the tahiyyat al-masjid. Then he gave salam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a recommended act of worship to do at all times. So you pray this before sitting down. إذ نصا ورد. Naam. And we mentioned the nas, the text, the hadith in Sahihain that supports this. وَلْتَقْعُدًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ الْقِبْلَةِ مَعْ تَوَجُّهٍ لِلْقَوْمِ وَإِنْ كَانَ يَسَعْ. وَلْتَقْعُدًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ الْقِبْلَةِ مَعْ تَوَجُّهٍ لِلْقَوْمِ إِنْ كَانَ يَسَعْ. Naam. And then you sit facing the qibla, and also facing the people. So the people's backs will be towards the qibla while you are facing the qibla. This is the way of sitting if the space allows that, if the area of the masjid allows that type of sitting. If not, if the masjid is small or it's not feasible to set up a lecture like that, then you can do the other way as well. طيب. However, it's recommended to face the Qibla. أو لا فقابلهم تربع واحتبي أو كيف يتفق دون نصب. طيب. um, نعم إن كان يسع أو لا. طيب. فقابلهم, and then you meet the people. تربع, with تربع واحتبي. When you meet the people, you do so with humility and kindness. You do so with humility and kindness. You do not walk in the masjid or in a place of the lecture as a haughty individual. Billah. How can a person who was given this knowledge by Allah, Allah has honored the person with this knowledge, how can they go amongst creation and now be haughty? That doesn't make sense. So be humble and be kind to others. Because this is what the knowledge teaches us. It does not teach us to put down others and be harsh with other people and to be arrogant with others. La. There's no text that supports that whatsoever. And anyone who behaves in this manner, then it shows that they're truly ignorant. And they shouldn't be learned from, honestly. These people should not be given the avenues to teach or to take knowledge from them, because they have not benefited from what has been revealed in reality. No matter how much they memorize or claim they memorize, no matter how much they have obtained or claim that they have obtained, these type of people should not be sought knowledge from, because with knowledge comes good etiquette. With knowledge comes good manners. This is what the Prophet taught us. So if this person cannot exude good character, then what else can you benefit from them, honestly? What can you truly benefit from them? Some of the Salaf, they said that they sought knowledge 40 years. Some said 20 years before they sought to learn manners for 40 years. And some say 20 years before they began seeking knowledge. SubhanAllah, imagine that. They sought manners. They sought manners for 40 years, 20 years before they began seeking knowledge. SubhanAllah bihamdi. Ad-Din, as mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, Ad-Dinu kulluhu al-khuluq. That the deen, all of it is khuluq, manners. Manners with Allah, manners with yourself, manners in dealing with others. This is the whole entire deen, ikhwani akhawat. فَمَنْ زَادَ عَلَيْكَ فِي الْخُلُقِ زَادَ عَلَيْكَ فِي الدِّينِ. So whoever has surpassed you in their good manners, then know for sure that they have surpassed you in their deen. So when you meet the people, meet them تربع واحتبي. Be humble and be kind to them. أو كيف يتفق دون نصب في هيئة حسنة نظيفة وبوقار نظرة لطيفة. And you meet the people in a good manner, in a good, clean outward appearance. You should have a good, clean outward appearance. وبوقار, also to have reverence, have serenity. Don't be running around, jumping, right? Rather, you have serenity. نظرة لطيفة, in a kind manner, right? You have, when people look at you, like, mashallah, this is Islam. Allahu Akbar. When they look at you, they should say, mashallah, this is Islam. Now, وَلْتُجْلِسِ النَّاسَ عَلَى حَسَبِ مَا لَهُم مِّنَ الْفَضْلِ وَخَيْرٍ انْتَمَى. And sit the people according to their level of virtue and goodness to which they belong. So, and in the majlis, of course, there's certain etiquettes in general, and there's specific etiquettes. Among these specific etiquettes is that the people of virtue, the people of khair, scholars, for example, if they're attending a lecture of another scholar, then they should have the closest seats to the scholar due to their virtue, due to their knowledge, due to their goodness. That the people of knowledge, the ones with most knowledge, they should be closest to the teacher. And you see this often, especially when there are lectures, for example. There's many, like lectures they have here in Saudi Arabia, addresses they have to, like, the imams of a particular town. You find that the first row is always reserved for the mashayikh. Or if they have like a conference, the first row is always reserved for the mashayikh, for scholars to sit, and they have special seats. They make special seats for them. This is also reserved for the closest students to the sheikh, those who have been with the sheikh for a long time, the scholar, the teacher for a long time. The reader, for example, no, these places are reserved for them. But if there's no one there, then you can sit there, no problem if you come early. But if it's space that is specified for them, then you should realize that, have wisdom. Like perhaps sit behind them. لا تب then it's the Shaykh رحمه الله, he says لا تعبثا واجلس بموضع على لكي يراك ظاهرا كل الملأ. Then the Shaykh رحمه الله ta'ala, he said, do not act foolishly, do not act foolishly. And yeah, this is a reference to the teacher. The teacher should realize that they have a high station, high status among the eyes of the people. And there's certain people that even though they've obtained knowledge, they still have some actions of immaturity. At the lesson, even if you're tested with this immaturity, you're unable to get rid of it fully, you should not show that immaturity to others. Do not act foolish with others. Because this is a place of knowledge, of learning, of speaking about قال الله وقال Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a serious matter. It's a serious place. And it's not befitting for a teacher of the deen, قال الله وقال Rasul, the statement of explaining the statements of Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to behave in a manner that's not befitting. As for what you see people, Allah Mustan, today, it's like comedy hour. Class time nowadays, open up YouTube, it's comedy hour. It's time to have a, I don't know what. People acting foolishly all the time. SubhanAllah bihamdi. And this shows a lack of wisdom, a lack of true in reality, a lack of knowledge, a lack of it shows that the person has not studied under another individual. Her person has not attending gatherings of knowledge. Because if they attended those gatherings of knowledge, then they would have seen that this is not how you behave. This is not how you behave in a lecture. Now, these are things that we should take into account as well, ikhwani akhwat. Whenever we seek knowledge from people, do not seek knowledge from the foolish, from those who do not respect themselves, do not have dignity. Naam. Wajlis bimawdi'in ala. Naam. And also that the sheikh, the teacher, should sit in a high position. Why? لِكَيْ يَرَاكَ ظَاهِرًا كُلُّ الْمَلَأ. So that the people, everyone around you can see you clearly. Okay, the sheikh should kind of be elevated, sitting on a chair, for example, sitting on the membar or any other area. If there's a lot of people, they should sit in a high area so that it can be seen by everyone and not be distracted. Or if there's not a lot of people, then it's okay for them to sit on the same floor. Now, make like a circle or everyone, as long as they're able to see the sheikh clearly. This is the intent. تبدأ بالقرآن ما تيسر. Then you begin with the Quran, that which is easy to recite. For example, as you mentioned later on, the khutbah al-haja, right? Reciting the ayat of khutbah al-haja, for example, the khutbah, the sermon of need. مبسملا محمدنا كما جرى. First by citing the basmala, saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, then praising Allah Azza wa Jalla, and then doing the khutbah al-haja. أولى إذ نعم خطبة الحاجة أولى إذ أتى هدي رسول الله فيها مثبتة صلى الله عليه وسلم. And you present the khutbah al-haja because this is something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite often in gatherings, in addressing his ummah, in his sermons. It's been affirmed that he said it often. صلي على النبي ثم سلمي اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Send the salah and salam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وادعوا بما يعم كل مسلمي. And also don't forget your brothers and sisters. Do not forget to make dua for all of the Muslims, because when you make dua for one person, the angels say Amin walak. So imagine how many or how much rewards you get for making dua for all of the Muslims. So for example, you would say اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا وللحاضرين ولجميع المسلمين. Allah have mercy on the Shaykh and the author, of course, and those who are present, and all of the Muslims. And all of the Muslims. This is what the reciter would say, the reader would say. And the Shaykh would do the same, also make dua for all the Muslims. وابدأ لدى التدريس بالأهم حتى يعم النفع كل القوم. And begin in teaching that which is most important What type of topics should you teach the people? You teach that which is prioritized in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you take a look at the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you see what he gave most importance to in his da'wah. And of course, that was a tawheed, calling to the oneness of Allah and warning the people from shirk. Even in Medina, when the Muslim, there was a big Muslim community, you find that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most important topic that he gave importance to was still tawheed and shirk. Subhanallah. So because we have Muslims today, right, we shouldn't say, oh, everyone's a Muslim, so we don't have to work, we don't have to focus on tawheed and shirk because everyone's Muslim. La, that's khata, that's a mistake. Because in reality, the Prophet ﷺ continued to teach tawheed and warn against shirk even in the Madani period, even up until his death. Now, and they had the best tawheed. The Sahaba had the best tawheed, and they were furthest away from shirk. Yet the Prophet ﷺ continuously taught them these two concepts. So what about today, where you have people who claim they're Muslim but worship other than Allah? Those who claim they're Muslim but they pray to a grave and they invoke other than Allah. These people are more in need in teaching them about Tawheed and warning them against shirk. Now, this is an important topic, ikhwani akhawat, because Jannah and Jahannam is on the line. Whoever is a muwahid, and may Allah make us all among the muwahideen, then they enter paradise. And whoever has some deficiency in that, may Allah protect us, then their abode is the fire. Their abode is the fire. No one enters Jannah unless they are a muwahid. May Allah make us all upon this tawheed. Make us firm upon this tawheed. Ameen. So this is the first thing a person should teach the people and give importance to. Naam. And this benefit will benefit all the people, those who attend. لا تلقي درسك إذا أتاك ما يغير الطباع حتى تسلم. Naam. As it relates to the teacher, when he teaches, then he should try to teach in a state where he's not busied with anything else. So do not conduct your lecture, your lesson, if there's something that's preventing you from being sound, from focusing 100%. من مرض جوع ودفع بول وكل ما ينمع فهم القول. Whether it be marad, some type of illness, if you're really sick, where it comes to a point where you're unable to focus and speak properly and focus on and concentrate on the lesson, then you should not teach. It's better for you not to teach. Okay, even if the teaching were to delay your recovery, then you should not teach. Now, as well as jur, if you're extremely hungry, not just hungry, but extremely hungry to a point where it affects your faculties. Now, there's some people, right, when they become hungry, they start to become angry. They start to snap. So if they're hungry, they should try to eat something before conducting the lecture. وَدَفْعِ بَوْلٍ. And also if they're fighting off using the bathroom, akramakumullah, they should try to use the bathroom first before teaching. وَكُلِّ مَا يَمْنَعُ فَهْمَ الْقَوْلِ. And anything that will prevent the people from understanding your speech, from you even understanding what you're trying to say, try to resolve those issues before you begin the lesson. طيب. Then the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he says, لا تطع الجلوس حتى لا يمل إذ المراد فهمهم دون ملل. Now, do not prolong the lesson, do not make it too long so that the people do not become bored. Since the intent of these lessons is to help them understand the deen of Allah without them becoming weary, without becoming bored. So, like I mentioned yesterday, that if the lesson is towards the general folk, people in the masjid, beginner students of knowledge, etc., family members, try to make the reminders very short and digestible for them, for their level, because they're not used to attending long lectures. As for if the audience is a student, an advanced student, intermediate student, even a beginner student who's used to classes, then you give them what is suitable for them, right? Everyone has their different ways of how you deal with them. You have to judge the situation and act accordingly. وليكن المجلس واسعا ولا تخفض لصوتك تضر بالملأ. And let the majlis be expansive. طيب. ولا تخفض. And do not speak in a low tone, because it will cause harm to everyone. Yani they will not be able to benefit from what you're saying. طيب. You should not whisper. Everybody came to the lecture to benefit from the words, right? So why are you whispering? Allah musta'an. Some people who think that this is the way of conducting a lecture, but in reality, that's not the way. Yani the point of you giving da'wah is for the people to benefit, not for you to speak in a low tone where no one can benefit. Then khalas, what's the point of coming and giving the lecture? نعم. ولتسن المجلس من سوء الأدب ورغب الجميع في نيل الأرب. That you should also protect and guard the gathering from bad manners, min su'il adab, and let everyone strive to achieve their, and encourage everyone in achieving their goals, their aims. طيب. You should try to give reminders to remind the people of the virtue of knowledge, and that the ultimate goal is to seek is to enter Jannah. As whoever من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة. أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Whoever transverses a path in seeking Islamic knowledge sincerely for the sake of Allah, Allah Azza wa Jalla facilitates his path to Jannah. Allah makes his path easier to Jannah. Subhanallah. Subhanallah bihamdi. May Allah grant us all Firdaus A'la bighayri hisab wala adhab. Ameen. The highest abode without any punishment or reckoning. This is the ultimate intent of seeking knowledge, ikhwan and akhawat, so that we can enter Jannah. Naam. Also, you protect the majlis from su'al adab. If you see a particular student who is doing something that's not befitting for the majlis al-ilm, the gathering of knowledge, then you educate them, you teach them that this is not how you ask a question, this is not how you should sit, this is not how you should act, this is not how you should look or come to a lesson, right? You shouldn't come to a lesson with your pajamas on, for example, right? You have to come in a beautiful manner. Subhanallah. Excuse me. فإن أساء بعضهم تلطف في دفعه قبل انتشار قد يفي. That if some of the students act bad or do something that's not befitting or harms the teacher or does something that hurts him, then the teacher should be gentle. تلطف في دفعه. Then the teacher should be gentle in correcting the bad manners and actions of these people. قبل انتشار قد يفي. Before it spreads, this bad action spreads to the other students like a disease, it should be corrected right there at that moment. Okay, so it doesn't become a bigger issue, snowball into a bigger issue practiced by everyone. Now, and prevention is better than the cure, right? It's always better to nip it in the bud from the beginning before allowing it to become worse. Correct the issues from the beginning. Now, وذكر الجميع لا منافسة لا حقد لا بغض ولا معاكسة. Naam, and you correct these manners in a good, gentle way. Right? This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Inna Allaha rafiqun yuhibbu rifq. Certainly Allah is the most gentle and he loves gentleness. وَيُعْطِي عَلَى رِفْقِ مَا لَا يُعْطِي عَلَى الْأُنْفِ. And he gives and he places in gentleness that which is not found or given to stubbornness and harshness. Subhanallah bihamdi. And the Prophet also said, "Inna rifqa la yakunu fi shay'in illa zanahu." Allahu Akbar. That gentleness is not in, does not appear in anything except that it beautifies it. Except that it beautifies it. وَلَا يُنْزَعُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا شَانَهُ. And it's not taken and removed from something except that it uglifies it. Subhanallah. Naam. So gentleness, ikhwani akhawat, it always has a better impact, a better ending, a better um, effect on affairs than if you were to be harsh with another individual. Now, وذكر الجميع لا منافسة لا حقد لا بغض ولا معاكسة. And remind the students that there's no competition, there's no resentment, there's no hatred, there's no opposition, there's no um, arguing in Islam in these lessons. We're all coming here to worship Allah, get closer to Allah. So we should not resent one another. We should not hate another individual. We should not be envious of another individual. We should not argue with other people. Rather, we come here to learn to get closer to Allah. طيب. Now, and the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجشوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا ولا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض وكونوا عباد الله إخوانا. He said, do not have envy for one another. Do not cheat each other out in buying and selling. Do not hate one another. Do not sever ties with one another, but rather be slaves of Allah, servants of Allah, ikhwanan, brothers. Be servants of Allah, be brothers, subhanAllah. Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. The Muslim is a brother of another Muslim. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. The believers are nothing more than brothers, right? Al-Muslimu akhul Muslim. The Muslim is a brother of a Muslim. لا يظلمه ولا يخذله ولا يكذبه ولا يحقره. He does not oppress him, nor does he embarrass him, nor does he lie against him, nor does he put him down in front of others, look down upon him. La. This is not why we are Muslims. Rather, we are brothers and sisters. This is something in reality, subhanAllah. The brotherhood and sisterhood of Islam is something beautiful in our deen that you can't find anywhere else. Where else can you find ikhwani akhawat? That's total strangers. When they meet one another and they say assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, it's like you're talking to your own family members, right? Someone, you have a connection with them. They're Muslim iman. This is something that is not found anywhere else, ikhwani akhawat. Anywhere else on the earth, on the world, the people, they don't treat each other like how the Muslims treat one another, right? Everyone is our brother, everyone's our sister. There's a love, there's a natural, you feel safe around them. And they may be a complete stranger, but because they're Muslims, subhanAllah, you feel safe around them. You feel like, mashallah, tabarakallah, this is my brother, this is my sister. Now, alhamdulillah for Islam, ikhwani akhwat. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, hamdan kathira, tayyiban mubarakan fi. This is a tremendous blessing to be a Muslim, ikhwani akhawat, that we have to remind ourselves of and thank Allah for. Now, طيب, then the Shaykh Rahimahullah, he said, بل شأننا الرفق. نعم. كذا الصفاء والود والرحمة والإخاء. نعم. We do not hate one another. We do not have enmity to one another. Rather, we are, as Muslims, we deal with one another with gentleness, and we have pure hearts for one another. We are serene to one another. We have love and mercy and brotherhood and generosity to one another. Now, in fact, it's a pillar of Islam to be generous to each other, right? To give the zakah and to help other Muslims, those in need. وإن أتى في الدرس ما لا تعرفه. So we have to remind our students of this, remind those who attend our lectures, our family members, of these virtuous characteristics and the brotherhood and sisterhood of Islam. وإن أتى في الدرس ما لا تعرفه فقل اللهم بالجهل ذا لا أعرفه. And if there comes in the lecture an affair, issue of knowledge, a topic which you do not know, then say to your students clearly, out audibly, ذا لا أعرفه. This particular knowledge, I do not know it, right? Do not be ashamed to mention that you don't know, or you have to review, or you have to check, or you have to verify. This is where our deen is based off of. قال الله وقال رسول is not based off what I think or speaking without knowledge. لا تأنفن من قولي لا أعلم أو الله أعلم فذا نهج رأوا. That we should not hesitate. We should not scorn or have disdain for the statement, I do not know, or Allah knows best. Okay, because saying these statements was the path of those who are knowledgeable. Naam, you have great scholars who made this statement moist on their tongue. In fact, Imam Malik rahimahullah has mentioned that there came a group of Muslims from all the way from, I think it was Andalus, all the way from modern day Spain. So think about it, they came from Spain all the way to Medina to ask questions, 40 questions or so. And the Shaykh and Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, he only answered a few, maybe 3 or 4, and the rest of the 36 or whatever number it was, subhanAllah, he said, I don't know. He said, I do not know. So the questioner said, Ya Imam Malik, oh Imam Malik, we came from such and such land, such and such distance. It took this much time to meet you. And we gathered questions from our people, telling them that we're going to ask Imam Malik for the answer. What did we go back and tell them? He said, go back and tell them Imam Malik. He said, go back and tell them Malik ibn Anas does not know. Yani Imam Malik, he says to them, tell them that Malik ibn Anas does not know. Subhanallah bihamdi. And look how knowledgeable he was, yet he was not afraid to say, I do not know. Now, and this is something that we should try to practice as well, ikhwan and akhwat. Do not rush in answering questions. This is from the path of the foolish, those who are rushing towards the fire, we have the billah. Now, those who rush to speak about the deen of Allah without knowledge, they're rushing themselves into the fire. And know that this affair of speaking about the deen, Allah is going to ask every single person, every one of us, about what we said in this dunya. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us to not follow what you have no sure knowledge of. Do not say nor even follow or practice that which you have no sure knowledge of from the Kitab and Sunnah. Why? Because إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Because everyone's hearing and everyone's sight and everyone's heart and their intellect, yani, all of that will be called into question. It will be called into account on the Day of Judgment. Why did you say this? Allah will ask you. Why did you do this? These are affairs that's going to happen, and there's no doubt regarding that. May Allah protect us all. May Allah grant us all al-firdaus a'la bighayri hisab wa la adhab, without any account nor reckoning. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us on that day, akhwan and akhawat. We have to constantly think about the akhirah. This dunya, it blinds us and it makes us forget the reality of what we're heading to. So we have to make conscious effort in reading the Quran and reminding us of the hereafter. Naam. So do not speak without knowledge and say, I do not know, and Allah knows best. This was the path of the righteous, of the Salaf of the Ummah. وَإِنَّ ذَا يَرْفَعُ قَدْرَكَ لَدَى مَوْلَاكَ وَالطُّلَابِ أَصْحَابِ الْهُدَى. And by doing so, that will raise your status. It won't negate your status. It will not diminish you. Rather, it will raise your status with Allah, which is the one who we try to please. And also, consequently, Allah will raise your status among the people, among your students, among the people of guidance, because Allah will put into their hearts that this person is fearful of Allah and does not want to speak without knowledge. Now, and they will recognize that you do not speak except with knowledge. Therefore, you become a verified source, someone who's more trustworthy than a person who goes on to answer every single thing, whether it is right or wrong. من سمن التقوى كمال المعرفة يعد جاهلا إذا ما استنكفه. Then the Shaykh goes on to say that one of the characteristics of piety is that, and from the perfection of having al-ma'rifah, yani knowledge and acknowledgement, is by making this statement, saying Allahu A'lam, and la adri or la a'lam. Okay, this is from the signs of having piety, taqwa, yani fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in reality, it's a perfection of their understanding, that they realize that they're not allowed to speak about everything in the deen without knowledge, right? Especially if there's no knowledge from the Quran and Sunnah, then you stay quiet. يُعَدُّ جَاهِلًا إِذَا مَا اسْتَنْكَفَهُ. And the one who disregards this, the one who looks down upon saying, I do not know, Allah knows best, and answers every single thing that comes to them, and even answers without knowledge, billah, then they're considered to be truly ignorant. That they are the people who are considered to be ignorant. Now, إِذَا مَسْتَنْ كَفَهُ, if they reject being, and even if they reject being corrected. Yani, the one who makes a mistake and they're corrected for that mistake, if they reject that mistake, if they reject that correction, yani, then they're also considered to be a jahil, ignorance. وإن يكن أقدم في الجواب من دون علم باء بالعقاب وضعه الله لدى من حضر وحط قدره فصار يزدرى. Then the Shaykh, he goes on to mention that if someone وإن يكن أقدم في الجواب من دون علم باء بالعقاب, subhanallah, that if you find that someone hastens to respond to a question without knowledge, okay, then he will return with a punishment befalling them. Yani there will be a punishment that afflicts them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَضَعَهُ اللَّهُ لَدَى مَنْ حَضَرَ وَحَطَّ قَدْرَهُ فَصَارَ يُزْدَرَى. That Allah Azza wa Jalla will punish them for speaking without knowledge and place them among those whose worth has diminished, and they will become scorned. They will become scorned. Yani, no, they'll become scorned. And criticized due to them doing that action. May Allah protect us all. طيب, what time is it? 6. طيب, we'll end with this, inshallah ta'ala. And then tomorrow we'll finish the poem with the last 3 pages. وفقكم الله. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والله تعالى أعلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.